2021 was a landmark year for renewable energy in the United States. Solar and wind energy grew at a record rate to make up 13% of the country's total power generation. Still, a lot more will be needed to achieve the Biden administration's goal of having a carbon pollution-free power sector by 2035. And that will require a lot of people embracing green technology in their own communities. But researchers are warning that misinformation stemming from social media might be hampering the development of these projects.
There are these community Facebook pages, which basically represent various groups opposing different projects, whether it's a solar project in one county or a wind project in another county. These groups come together on Facebook to disseminate information and misinformation.
Independent journalist Julia Simon recently dug into the Facebook groups formed around renewable energy projects in a report for NPR, explaining how that natural curiosity people have about solar panels or wind turbines has been met with misinformation.
We saw one video that was very popular that was a kind of a movie trailer. It was actually very well produced, very beautiful, about offshore wind in the Northeast. And it featured multiple falsehoods, like the idea that this offshore wind project in Massachusetts hadn't done any environmental impact studies, the idea that wind projects haven't worked anywhere in the world. That is not true. If you look who was funding this film trailer, well, it was the Texas Public Policy Institute. They were making it for a group in Massachusetts, but they are a group that has ties to the fossil fuel industry.
But it wasn't always that easy to track down the original sources of media Julia saw circulating online, or to find any evidence that could counter or even support the claims being made.
Say you see a photo of a burning turbine, which is very common to see those. The question is, how common is it to actually have a burning turbine nearby? And what you realize when you ultimately find the source of these photos is that, maybe this burning turbine was from a few years ago, or maybe it was from a burning turbine in New Zealand or in Japan. And there often are real photos and real legitimate concerns. And then the question is where they came from, when they happened.
In her report, Julia cited one study that analyzed the impact of two Facebook groups opposing a proposed wind project in Ohio. Researchers found that the pages increased, quote, perceptions of human health and public safety risks related to wind by sharing news of disasters and misinformation over health assessment risks. That proposed project was ultimately rejected with, quote, local opposition named as one of the reasons.
What happens when you ask Facebook about this or ask one of the moderators in these groups?
Yeah, so we did check with Facebook, and the Facebook spokesperson told us that we take action against content that our fact-checking partners rate false as part of our comprehensive strategy to keep viral, provable false claims from spreading on our apps. They also said that they didn't think that these examples that we shared were being shared too much. But researchers who I spoke to, who specifically looked at Facebook groups and found that there was a spreading of misinformation related to health and safety, said that these posts have an impact and there are stakes here, and that they're feeding a conflict between rural communities and the energy companies that are hoping to set up wind and solar projects.
Julia also found some examples of misinformation on other platforms besides Facebook, meaning it's important to be vigilant across platforms when researching this content.
Because there's so much misinformation floating around, it ultimately requires everyday citizens to become little PhD researchers to parse out what information is real or not, and that makes these decisions over renewable projects really complicated.
Say you live somewhere in the United States and someone's thinking about putting in a wind farm or a solar farm somewhere in your area. What's a good place to actually learn the facts about renewable technologies and renewable energy.
The US government has a website called windexchange.energy.gov. I know people don't always trust the government, but there are a lot of independent researchers there who have done a lot of work asking these questions about safety, asking these questions about health.
You can also follow Julia's lead and take that extra step of searching for the original source for any content that grabs your attention. That way, you can better understand any intentions behind the claim and see if there really is hard evidence to back it up. And if you come across something particularly wonky or hard to decipher, hey, it never hurts to ask.
There's also researchers across the US, wherever you are, that you could turn to your local university. And I find as a journalist that these researchers are very responsive, but I think that in general, these researchers don't always get emails about their work and would welcome an email.
Until next time, I'm Hari Srinivasan, and this is Take on Fake. Thanks for watching.